Hello, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Bruce?
Lionel?
Bruce?
Lionel?
Is this the first podcast since the last podcast?
It is indeed. I can affirm, I can attest that it is the first podcast since the last podcast. However, the order of podcasts may be variable, but it is indeed the first since the last.
And this is, in a very rare occasion, this is our third take of trying to do this introduction.
Yes, it's been somewhat a stressful event so far.
Yes, because we've been trying, at the same time, we've been trying to help our buddy Scott Lister get his new MacBook Pro working and get his headset going.
Yes.
And it's been an ordeal.
Yes.
So we
that is safe to say.
So we tried to do the intro fast, but that was a disaster.
Yes. Then we tried to do it fast again, and also a disaster.
Yeah, then we tried to do it faster.
So now we're just going to take our time and get this right.
Yeah, exactly.
Third time's the charm, right?
Right. So anyways, this is an introduction to the interview we did with Lex Parker at his home in St. Catharines, Ontario, because after 25 years and a second attempt at this particular layout, he has finally decided to downsize his home. Him and his wife are downsizing. And they've found a lovely smaller home that they're going to move to, and his layout is being dismantled. So we thought it would be really cool to interview Lex right in his home.
Exactly.
And I would say, generally, the day was a solid 10 out of 10.
It was a solid 10 out of 10. Absolutely.
However, at the 30-minute mark...
Is there a however?
Right. So we used our portable recorder, which we used many times in Springfield.
Yes.
This was the first time, though, we'd ever done an interview with 3 microphones.
Oh.
Actually, I'd tried it once before in Springfield and Kansas City, and it was kind of a bust then, too. This was not a bust.
So three might not be good.
Well, no, it was generally it worked fine.
Okay.
But around the 30-minute mark, I got a phone call. And after the phone call, after I had my little chit-chat with the guy that made the tablecloth for the Springfield booth, and I hung up, then we started getting, well, actually it happened during the phone call. I started getting this clicking sound.
Right.
And click, 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 click. It was very annoying. There's an electronic clicking sound.
Right.
That you would expect to be annoying. So then after the phone call was over, it was still there. So I assumed it was probably coming off of my microphone. So when I thought, well, maybe I can get rid of it, but it was coming off. It looks like it was coming off Lex's microphone. I have no idea what it was, other than it's very annoying. I've been able to get rid of a lot of it, but I have to apologize. This is not a technically sound podcast. It is a contently sound podcast where it's like got spectacular content, but the technical side of it is not so much.
Oh, yeah, but we can live with that because it's such great information to share with the AML Nation that despite the minor technical difficulties, you're going to enjoy what you're about to hear.
Yes, you really, really are. I mean, I enjoyed the whole thing from start to finish.
Yes.
Clicking sound or not. So I want to apologize to the AML Nation and all the folks that listen to it, but it is still well worthwhile. I just wanted to let everybody know I'm not a complete doofus. I am well aware of it was there. I have no idea why it was there. I probably never will know why it is there because it's electronics.
There you go.
And electronics is the way it is. But, man, what a spectacular layout.
Oh, indeed it was.
Is apparently...
Oh, it still is. It's just going to a new location.
Yeah, the container's being dropped off at his home apparently next week.
Beautiful.
The week you're listening to this, today's May the 2nd, so by now the container has been dropped off. The dismantling has started to take place, and it is going to be shipped off to California. So I'm hoping we'll get a hold of the fella that bought it.
Yeah.
And we'll interview that guy and how excited he is, and hopefully he'll take lots of pictures, and Lex will take lots of pictures. And so if anybody's looking Scott... Lex has a Facebook page, the Denver and Rio Grande Western Model Railroad, and he also has a website drgwrr.com, which we mentioned many times during the podcast.
Yes.
Bruce, I am now exhausted. Could you please, with enthusiasm, take us out of here?
Absolutely. Subway chimes, go.
Okay, Bruce, are you
Ready?
convinced that before the day is over, the whole thing will go flying off the
floor somewhere?
Flying off the table into the...
When you talk portable, I immediately think of the portable cone of silence from Get Smart.
How much do you know about chaos?
What did you say, sir?
Chaos!
Oh, chaos. Yes, of course. Well, that's an international criminal organization that was founded, I think in 1957.
Agent 57 is in Hong Kong. Hodgkins raised the cone of silence.
What? Perhaps we could just talk soft.
But we digress.
So we are here at Lex Parker's house in his basement with our little portable recorder. We've each got a microphone.
Yes.
And we're going to interview Lex right here in his basement because I thought it would be really cool because I got some very distressing news a month or two ago, and I thought, well, that's no good. I want to. So the distressing news is that he's taken his layout down.
Yes, I've heard that, and there's a lot of people in the model railroad community who've also expressed some concern about that and dismay and everything. But yeah, it's nice to be here for one final look.
So where did you hear about it? On the internet, on the intranet,
on the interwebs, on some remember like email chat groups and things like that.
Oh yeah,
Mr. Parker's on a few of those and posts occasionally on an ON30 group, and that he was going to take his layout down, and there was hands thrown in the air, people falling on the floor and moaning and whining and whinging and cringing. But yes, the word is out.
All right, Lex, this is it. This is your moment. Your first time on the portable recorder.
Amazing. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to my basement and the Denver and Rio Grande Western Railroad and narrow gauge.
And so why is it true then? Is this true with the rumors we're hearing?
No. Just to get you down here.
It was all a ploy. Well, in that case, thanks for having us, Les. We appreciate the visit.
Yeah, would it have killed you to bring you snacks?
Drinks would be good.
Yeah, drinks.
My kids for the last couple of years have been trying to encourage us to downsize. And I didn't see the need for it because I manage this house pretty much by myself. On the outside and the inside, my wife, of course, is very helpful. And but to be honest, I started to feel, the difficulties in cutting grass and painting. And in fact, I was going to paint the house, and I got a firm no. You aren't getting up on ladders. And so my daughter, the second child, her and my granddaughter, they came and painted the entire interior of the house.
Wow.
And 2 years ago, I hired a painter to do the outside. Usually I do all the outside as well.
Sure, yeah.
I've done the outside over probably about 3-4 times over the 40 years. We've been here for 40 years.
40 years. And because the outside is wood, is it?
It's all clear cedar.
Clear cedar, okay.
Yeah. 20,000 board feet of clear cedar.
Wow.
That's a wee bit of wood. Now, you designed and built your house, did you?
We designed the house and we built it, yeah. And then we bought the property in 1980 in the fall. Funny story, not really funny, I guess, in a way. I was coming back from a project in Niagara Falls and along the QEW, and this was just after we bought the property, which was all overgrown with shrubs and trees. And I see this plume of smoke. So I thought, this looks interesting. I had nothing else to do in Beamsville, so I cut off, followed the smoke trail, and came to the circle in front of my house, and the whole ravine of trees behind me were on fire. There used to be a lumber yard behind us, and some guy was smoking back there, and I guess he didn't put his cigarette out, and some of the brush got caught in fire, and the next thing I know, the trees were all on fire. Fire department was here. Well, needless to say, we were really shocked because one of the reasons we bought this lot was because of the ravine and the trees. But nature has its way, and you wouldn't know there was a fire today. The recovery was amazing, but it was a shock.
Yeah.
And then we drew up the plans, and we got contractors, and we started to build in the spring of 81, and we moved in the fall of 81. My office was down here, and this whole area here, one half of this area was my office. Right. And we worked here for, I would say, 3 years, but I'm not 100% sure. I lost track of time. And that's when we decided, since we were going to hire staff, it was getting too much to handle out of the house, the lack of privacy. So we moved business into St. Catharines on Ontario Street, and we were there for 7 years. And then we decided where we were, it wasn't, it was starting to get a run-down area.
Right.
And we moved into one St. Paul, into the parking garage besides one St. Paul in St. Catharines. So we fixed that up. The city owns the garage, so the city was our tenant now and was going to look after the site and everything. And we were there for 28 years.
28 years?
Yeah. Where'd the time go? And then 3 years ago, we had an opportunity to move out of there to another facility in the north end of St. Catharines at the there's a design center there, and Elmwood Design Center.
Right.
And the whole building is retail stores for tile, carpet, lighting, for all kinds of flooring. So we were in a community of design suppliers. So we've been there now for 3 years.
So what exactly, because not everybody will know, but what exactly is it that you did for a living, that you were self-employed?
We're interior designers, not decorators, and not stagers. We are interior designers. We're registered. I'm a graduate in the field from Ryerson.
Right.
And as an interior designer, the difference between interior designers and interior decorators, we deal with building codes. And we also do construction drawings. So we're not just decorating. Decorating is kind of like the last step that we do.
Right.
So as interior designers, we would design offices and restaurants and hotel lobbies and retail stores. And we also do some residential work as well. But the commercial work has been the strong point of our business.
So how did you get involved in doing it on your own? Like, I'm assuming you hired a guy to design your house, right?
Yeah, my wife.
Yeah. So were you both doing the interior design?
Well, my wife was actually a school teacher for a number of years. We met and we're high school sweethearts. So we've been together ever since high school.
Right.
She became a teacher. I went to Ryerson while she worked. And when I graduated in 1968, I was very naive and thought, well, I'll just go into business.
Right.
I didn't go and learn the field by anybody else. I just threw it all in and hoped for the best. And so we've been in business, since 1968.
So how did you get clientele when you first started?
Hard.
Yeah.
But I did pick up a few. I've done a lot of work on Clifton Hill and Niagara Falls, and I picked up a project there that just started expanding. I worked for Harry Oakes, the Oakes family, for many years, doing all the hotel and restaurants and so on.
Right. So what exactly is Clifton Hill and Niagara Falls?
Well, Clifton Hill is kind of the focal point of tourism.
Right.
The hill itself it runs down to where the falls are.
Right. Yeah.
So it's where everybody goes.
So
it's entertainment district.
Yeah, it's the entertainment district.
Yeah.
And so, in actual fact, where you live is like, how long does it take you to get to Niagara Falls from here?
That's 35, 40-minute drive.
Yeah. And Niagara Falls is right across the river from Buffalo, basically.
Yep. Right.
Is it south or north of Buffalo?
East.
You'd be east.
Okay.
Niagara Falls is west of Buffalo.
Is Windsor south or north of Detroit?
North.
This is north.
Ooh.
This is a sticking point with him because he's from Windsor originally. And one day I was saying, "Oh yeah, Windsor's just east over the river from Detroit." And he goes south. I went, "What?" He said south. So what are you talking about? Windsor is like a mile south of Detroit.
Which is true.
Which is true.
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's true. Yeah.
About it is the only major city in Canada that is south of the U.S.
Oh, really?
Well, this whole area is of Ontario is further south than 1/3 of the U.S.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. But is it the 49th is the one that runs across the prairies, right?
Yes.
And then this is like 47 or
Yeah,
something.
we were down. In
Yeah.
fact, at Point Pelee National Park, which is south of Windsor, there's a sign there that this point is the same as the northern border the southern border of California.
Yeah.
Northern border of California.
Yeah, so where we are basically, because people all over the world listen to this. We have people in Switzerland and Italy and South Africa and all over the world listen to this. And so we are, whenever we're doing something like this, I try to always geographically give everybody an idea of where we are. So right now, roughly, we're at the west end of Lake Ontario, the east end of Lake Erie, and maybe 30 miles from Buffalo, New York.
About 30 miles, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, from Buffalo, New York, home of Buffalo Wings.
Home of Buffalo Wings.
And Buffalo Sabres.
Buffalo Bills.
It's French Connection. Yeah, Buffalo Bills. And right now, as we're recording this is the start of playoffs. So now we know where we are. And you got some clients so on the Canadian side of Niagara Falls, it's much more built up, much more tourism, much more everything on the Canadian side. The American side of Niagara Falls is really not much of anything.
Well, the problem there, of course, is they don't really have a direct view of the falls. It's always sort of just to the side. So, the prime views of the two falls are from the Canadian side.
Right.
And that's why people come over.
That was the way the falls were made.
Yeah.
That was the one thing when we became independent. We then demanded we had to have the better view of the falls.
We worked out the War of 1812, so we kept a good view of the falls.
That's right.
Wasn't that like the biggest of all the war? Canadian the War of 1812 was like a big deal around here.
It was a very big deal around here.
Yeah, and there's monuments and everything.
There's monuments, all sorts of battles in the Niagara Peninsula in this area. It's incredible. In fact, I just got another 3 or 4 books on the various battles around here that I'm starting to read again. So it's fascinating history when you get back to the whole Niagara frontier region.
So what'd you do? Start pounding the pavement down there, or you just kind of?
Well, I was fortunate to get a couple of contacts, and that sort of kept me going. But we were doing other things, promoting ourselves for residential work as well, and it slowly grew.
Right.
And so we did a substantial amount of work down there. But our work we've been brought in by people all over the place. I've done projects in Calgary. I did some work in California. We did a museum down in Branson.
Oh, really?
I did. There's a museum down there that wanted to have sets of some of the well-known TV shows, like Johnny Carson, for example, his day. So we designed a lot of the sets that they would build in the museum.
Wow.
Yeah.
How cool was that? When did you do that? Like, how long ago was that?
Long time.
All right. We should tell Tony Cook about that.
Probably.
Tony be all over that.
That's probably 20 years when we did that, yeah.
So how long were you in business till you felt like, okay, this is there's a good idea after all, and people started contacting you? Like, was it 5 years in, 10 years in?
Oh, no, things build up slowly, and then, of course, when just backtracking, when I graduated, I went into business, and this is where I get some of my work. I met a fellow who was going to be an architect, but he didn't succeed in school as an architect. He was at UT, so he was doing interior design as well. And so we met and we joined forces and we became partners.
Okay.
And we had a business called Creative Design Consultants in Hamilton. He actually lived in Dundas and worked out of his basement, and that's where our office was for a couple of years. And then he bought a small house in Westdale and converted it to an office, and we worked there. But after 7 years, I discovered that I was being taken advantage of in many ways financially, and so I packed up and I left.
Why do so many partnerships end up like that? I don't understand that. I don't understand how.
But he was 20 years my senior, and a lot more experience, and that's actually where I learned a lot of my architectural experience.
Okay.
And landscape design from him, because he eventually became a landscape architect because that was his passion. But in '75 we quit, and when I left him, We started our own business out of our home in Hamilton. Susan, we had just had one of our children, so she left teaching and joined me. So she's been with me as a partner in the business ever since '75.
Wow.
And so that we sold that house, and that's when we got the lot here in Beamsville. And so in that interim period of 7 years, as a partnership, that's where a lot of the leads came from as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure. And how big is this lot?
It's a pie-shaped lot, which is what we like because we designed the house in a sort of a crescent profile.
Oh, did you?
So that it fits the lot, and we could move it back from the front, which sets us apart from our neighbors, where all the neighbors up the street are, let's say, probably 10, 12 feet apart.
Right.
We can't see our neighbors from our house on either side and vice versa. And I'd say we're probably 50, 60 feet away from our two neighbors. So we've got a lot of privacy.
Yeah.
And the ravine was the interest, so all the windows are on the back, and
Yeah,
then
it's beautiful out there.
the front is only a handful of windows, which are really for light and to see who's in the driveway. We don't sit watching who's out in the neighborhood. We like the decks. We got 4 decks around the house, so we can go to different decks different times a day. It's always beautiful on the back because the ravine going right across behind all the neighbors on this side, the winds come from that direction. So even on the hottest days, we're probably at least 10 degrees cooler because the breeze coming through is quite cool. So we got sheltered decks and we got full sun decks. So best of all the worlds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you a question. Don't tell me what it was. Let me think.
Now the style, I'll interrupt you. The style of the house is quite different from what everybody else has done. Because I've always liked West Coast style homes, very contemporary, and in this case we have a flat roof, and that's why I did it all in cedar. It could have been brick and could have been stucco, a lot of other materials, but the vertical cedar boards was very contemporary.
Yeah.
And so that's how we've evolved. The house design evolved slowly.
I was just thinking, what it was is I was thinking is, I built my house that I've been in for 35, 38 years, but I went to the local lumber yard and they had, there was no, I don't think there was Home Depots back in the early 80s, was there?
No.
Probably Beaver Lumber.
It was probably Beaver Lumber, and I bought this book for I remember buying this, I saw this book for $5 or $7 with plans in it, and I found a plan that was I wanted a bungalow, and I found this plan, and I thought, well, I need another staircase because I don't want to be going in the middle, and then I did a couple other things to it, and it's you got all this, and I ended up with a plan out of a book, and I was like, it's been a pretty good house.
Yeah, you kit bashed your house.
Basically. I kit bashed my house. Yeah, I kit bashed my house.
That's what you got to do because there's no reason to build what everybody else builds of a plan. You've got to tailor it to suit your own needs.
Yeah,
and that's what we did here, and that's what we did in the place we're going to, which I guess we'll get to next.
Yeah. So are you building a new place?
Yep.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we bought a lot, a condo in Thorold, which is just the south end of St. Catharines. It's about 10 minutes from Brock University and Penn Center, the shopping mall.
Right, so if you ever want to go back to university.
Yeah, I know where it is. So, we bought the condo last year. They're going to start digging next month. It's a small community. It's not a very large community, which is we didn't want to be in large condo units or townhouses. It's a single story. So getting back to the original question, my kids wanted us to downsize. So now we decided this was the time. And so last year we started looking, and of course there's such a high demand for housing in this area, and we just couldn't find anything that we could just move into. So we postponed selling last year. And we didn't really like a lot of places that we saw, because of the density. We found places that looked like military barracks, and I thought, no, that's not going to work. And since a lot of them were in a nice location, but not the style.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we found nice locations with, nice condos and townhouses. They're in a crappy location. So we were very fortunate to find this little community that is being developed as we speak.
So this is like a little house on the ground that's in a condo?
Yeah, there are units that are 4 units each.
Okay.
like a strip.
Right.
But they're random all around the property.
That's like my house in Florida. I can never get over it. It's a 1,700 square foot bungalow, but it's basically a condo. You own the lot and the property, but they do for $120. It's ridiculous, for $120 a month. They do all of the outside.
Well, that's the same as where we are. You know, there's no condo fees as such.
Yeah.
It has a strange, and I can't remember the name for this property, because they're not townhouses and they're not the conventional condos. And the reason is we own the unit and we own the property that it sits on. And we pay, I think, about $160 a month for all maintenance, including water. It's all irrigated, everything. And whereas most condo fees, you'd be paying $100, $500-600 a month.
Oh, I know, it's crazy.
Yeah, that goes into a fund for repairs in the future. Well, I figured at 77, I'm not going to be around in 20 years to repair the roof, so whoever buys my place will have my money. So it was the best of both worlds.
Well, nowadays, you could very easily be around in 20 years, and there's no reason why, if you are, that you can't repair your own roof.
No. And in 20 years, everybody in the units will be facing the same thing, so it'll be all in one shot.
Exactly.
So 20 years from now, Lex will provide details, and
I will.
Any enterprising roofing contractors out there, get in touch, and there'll be some work for you.
So we can't do much with the exterior because that's pretty standard.
Sure, yeah.
Although I've been giving a lot of design consultation to the builder, but we have taken his plan as you did, and we redesigned all the interiors to suit our style of living and accessibility. It's about 1,400 square feet. We were fortunate enough to get, because it was all pre-sold, we were lucky to get in, and we've got the end unit, which has windows on three sides instead of just front and back.
Right.
And then I'm also finishing off the basement with a bedroom and a bathroom, so they're for guest room.
Are you hoping to do any kind of modeling when you get there?
The plan was to, take this and build a shelf layout of approximately 35 feet as a switching layout, 2 feet by 35. But I don't want to jump the gun too soon because I don't know what's happening, health-wise.
Right.
I don't know how much time before I'd be able to start that. Because one of the reasons that I wouldn't do this layout again, with my back problems and, other health issues and I was going to say my eyesight, but I got new lenses in my eyes, so now I can see everything. No glasses anymore.
That's kind of a relief.
Yeah, it was no kidding. And so it would be something very simple like a shelf layout just to use some of the equiplant and have a place to run.
Which would be, your shelf layout would be spectacular.
But it's a plan, and I have a plan of the track plan already drawn up that's ready to go. Because one of the things I would do, knowing that I can't get underneath easily to wire, being a shelf layout, I would have it in trays just like this one, so 8-foot trays,
right,
hinged on the wall. So once I lay the track, I just fold it up, and I can wire everything standing up, and then fold it back down again.
Yeah. So one of the reasons I wanted to come and do this in your house was mostly to get free drinks or something. But mostly I thought, Bruce, this would be a really good idea. I'm interested. I mean, you're a modeler that is well known. Like, what master model number are you?
300.
300. I mean, help me out here. Describe this. But I mean, your modeling is exquisite.
Absolutely.
Your layout has been here for decades.
25 years.
25 years.
This is the second layout down here.
In this home. It's the second layout in this home.
Yep.
You have a beautiful website. What's the website URL?
drgwrr.com. Denver Rio Grande Western Railroad. drgwrr.com.
drgwrr.com. Right? You know me.
You'll get it sooner or later.
Yeah, exactly.
I was very fortunate. I don't know how I lucked out getting the DRGW name both for my email and for my website.
I know. It's
I actually
when you take them, you take them.
I was hoping they'd come and buy it from me.
Obviously going way back now, what got your interest in Colorado narrow gauge?
Probably talked about this in the last one time I
I'm sure
spoke
you
with
did,
you. But to mention it again, I was modeling up until I came here. I was modeling HO, CPCN, TH&B, which I love, the Toronto Hamilton Buffalo Railroad, and much of the same kind of scenery that I do here, sort of Northern Ontario.
Right.
But the group that I'm in, the groups that I was involved with, my friends all modeled the same thing. So even when we went to each other's homes, it was always the same. There was nothing kind of different. I wanted to share something that was different from what everybody else was doing. And I was on a fan trip at the Strasbourg Railroad around 1979. And standing in a gondola. Sorry, it was Cass, West Virginia. That's where it was.
I remember that now.
It was in Cass, West Virginia, and we're going up the mountain, and we're chatting with a couple of the guys that were also had motor layouts, and one of them was in ON3. He just had equipment; he didn't do anything else. And he said, "Well, why don't you look into the Denver Rio Grande Western or narrow gauge? They're completely different. And if you're going to narrow gauge, you can get tighter radiuses and steeper grades." And then he said that, it's all steam, and what's unusual, most of the engines are counterweights on the outside, so they have inside frames. So everything looks so different.
Right.
And I thought, well, that sounds interesting. So it happened that there was a narrow gauge convention in Durango that following year. So I went down to Durango and went to Chama, New Mexico, and just fell in love with it all because Chama, both Durango and Chama are tourist railroads now. That used to be the Denver and Rio Grande West narrow gauge combined in its operating days, but they're now independent. Durango is the Durango and Silverton, which is privately owned. The one out in Chama, which is now owned jointly by the states of Colorado and New Mexico.
Yeah.
So, Durango is very commercial looking, and Chama is like going back in time, and that's what got me. You could walk in the railroad yards freely. You could climb on stuff. You can go through the shops. They had no restrictions other than don't be stupid.
Yeah.
And
so I guess I couldn't go then.
One of the burdens, right?
Yeah.
It was all steam, which is the same as actually in Durango and Silverton, but it's all steam. But when I say that you go back in time, that it hasn't changed in probably 50 years.
And they're
years.
doing that on purpose. Like one of our friends, one of our regular contributors and listeners to the podcast is Rich Winiski, and he belongs to that Friends of the Silverton and what do they call it? The name is of the railroad in Chama. What's it called?
I'm letting you figure it out.
I can't figure it out. I'm drawing a blank. I know what it is, but I'm drawing a blank.
Cumbers and Toltec.
Cumbers and Toltec. There you go.
You got it very good. I wasn't going to make it that easy for you.
And Rich is listening to this, screaming at the
pounding his head in the wall. Sorry, Rich.
Cumbers
we'll send you some Excedrin.
Cumbers is a little water stop, and Toltec is actually the bridge.
Right. Yeah.
But that railroad goes from Chama to Antonito.
Yes.
It's just south of the border. It's in New Mexico. And so it zigzags back and forth across the border between Colorado and New Mexico. But it's just a little town. It's growing now because tourism in the last few years has found it.
Yes.
But it's still just as quaint as it was then, and that's what intrigued me. And so I would go down every the convention years or a vacation down there. And I would measure up and photograph buildings and to try and duplicate them. That was the whole intent here, was to go from an 8-foot yard that I had on the last layout to a 37-foot yard that was
much more
realistic
representation of the actual.
And that was the focus on this layout.
So I got a really good question. So you decide on you're going to model ON3. You fall in love with the Cumbers and Toltec. This is 1979. So how difficult was it at that point to find ON3 locomotives that suited what you wanted to model?
It was difficult because the local hobby shop in St. Catharines was a fairly major hobby shop in this area.
There was a great hobby shop, Niagara Central Hobbies.
And he just started to bring in some of the brass locomotives, mostly Shays and Gid locomotives. And I did pick up 2 or 3 of them because I was thinking, well, I'll just put logging in here for the time being.
Right.
But then he got a K27 461 in, and I saw that, and I thought, I got to have that. And so, because of the purchases, he started, in the interest with 2 or 3 of the guys, he started to get more and more brass in. And I slowly built up a collection of the brass. I also picked up some of the conventions as well.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we need to touch on, I mean, you've been a model railroader your whole life, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah.
So I remember you telling us a story before about how when you used to paint locomotives for Niagara Central.
Yes, in those days, back pre-80, pre-90 really, nobody was really weathering locomotives or rolling stock. Everything was sort of out of the box. You paint the engine was glossy and shiny. Prior to that, in a few years, I was collecting model railroad magazines, MR, and the back cover was always John Allen's pictures on the back cover, and I just couldn't put them down. I thought this guy's got a great eye for weathering and scenery, and so I didn't have airbrush, I didn't have spray equipment, but I got rattle cans, and I painted a couple of locomotives and a lot of hand brushing, and I took them to the hobby shop. And the first time anybody really had seen weathered locomotives, and it just started right from there. And then all of a sudden, huge demand. Whether I was painting shop, it didn't really matter, or weathered locomotives. And
so, how old were you when that was happening?
How old was I? Well,
I mean, was this your early 20s, mid 20s?
Me in my 30s.
Okay.
I'm 77 now, so
right,
and that's like 40 years ago.
Okay.
So,
but still,
30s, mid to late 30s, yeah.
But still, I mean, that's part of a conversation I thought it would be great to have too. I mean, I knew this was going to be a good idea. Sometimes I do have good ideas.
You do.
Like the change you've seen in the hobby from the late 70s to present day is really kind of mind-boggling when you think about it. You say you started out, you painted them with rattle cans, and the creation of what you've done now it's kind of mind-boggling, the changes we've seen in 40 years.
Well, a lot of that has to do with the industry and people and hobbyists who create their little small business out of their homes, whether they're making a kit for rolling stock or structures and detail parts, and then it's evolved in today now that a lot of people are doing 3D printing, which is even so much more realistic, especially for figures.
Right.
And the evolution, has gone to a long way from where it was back then. Oh. Big changes. But it also meant that everything that I did back then, I had a scratch build. People, let's say people of that era, are scratch builders, because there were limited kits. There wasn't a lot that you could get. There was Tamelco, who produced freight cars, but what they did is it's a box with all the strip wood, and the castings from Grant Line, and sometimes they had wheel sets, sometimes they didn't, no couplers. And so it really was scratch building. They just give you the parts and plans. And that's how I started building all my rolling stock. Was all done by those sort of shake box of strip wood.
Was there any time when you kind of thought, or were you pretty excited about the ON3 right up once you started? It was like no looking back.
Oh, there's no question about that. What ON3 does is gives you the ability to have O scale in a smaller area. Yeah. A tighter radiuses. My tightest radius in here is 42 inches. Standard gauge, pretty hard to do that, as a main line. But what's happened with the evolution of the hobby, as you're asking, today I see, and I'm disappointed about it, today I see people, they want to buy things ready-made right off the shelf. They don't want to put the effort in to build stuff, or to learn how to do it, to do a better job. The tools are out there for them. I try to give tutorials on my website and a couple other places that try to help people, to get into scratch building or show them how to do things. Because some people who have never built anything, they don't know where to start and they don't know what tool to pick up.
Yes,
and
that's an excellent point.
That is a block. And I've had people call me and tell me that, and I've helped them by taking and showing them what to do and how to do to get them started. And it's like the world opened up for them. Then I get calls back, wow, that was easy. I didn't realize, and bang, next thing you know, they're away building kits.
You can get over that first initial, what am I doing? And then get one or two under your belt, and then you realize, well, it's not that difficult.
It's not that difficult.
And you talk about your tutorials. I know you share them on some of the email groups or chat groups, whatever you want to call them, and also have some on YouTube as well.
Yeah, and a lot on YouTube.
And they are fantastic for... because Lex will take you kind of step by step on how he does stuff, and to learn from a master and see how he does it, you can't really go wrong.
They're great. They actually are great videos. What's your YouTube channel?
I don't have a channel on it.
No,
just whatever videos that I produce, I put them up on there. So if you just to put my name in Lex Parker, you'll see all kinds of stuff show up. Yeah,
because they're high quality too. They're very, very high quality. That's the thing that I really want to try to emphasize to everybody is the one thing I've discovered with this podcast is how many really good modelers there are. Like the hobby has kind of been, I say it over and over and over again, and I probably will never stop. But I think the hobby has been kind of like this, there's all the guys that lived in the St. Catharines area, and there's guys in Toronto, and there's guys in Buffalo. And
right, there are groups everywhere.
But they never could find each other. And now all of a sudden we've all found each other.
Right. Thanks to you.
Yeah, and you have the ability to share what you do and stuff like that.
Well, the internet itself has changed this hobby as well. Oh. Because of the sharing and it's been a very useful tool for everybody. It doesn't matter what hobby you're in, because there's all kinds of hobbies up there if you look. And so I just wish there were more modelers trying to do things for themselves instead of just opening a box and sticking it on the layout, because that to me is where the enjoyment is and the challenge in this hobby. And I understand that some people just want to build, some people just want to run trains. Me, I just enjoy building. This is really just a diorama.
Oh yeah, you're
to run trains. I'm not an operator.
Yeah, what you love more than anything is creating something with your hands.
Yeah, and I try to do things that can be photographed. And that's why I've been able to get on some covers of several magazines. Sure. Articles are in the magazines. Because to me, this is, I'm trying to create realism. And you have to look at nature, and you have to see how nature lays material down. It isn't wall-to-wall grass like you would put a lawnmower over it. Nature has all kinds of modeling and variations, and you have to study that kind of stuff to create that realism.
Yeah, well, in every sense of the word, you are an artist, and you're basically, some are working in 2D, you're a 3D artist.
Well, it's true. Because of my design business, I do have an artistic talent, and I use that's one of my tools. And I understand not everybody can do what I do. Some people, listen, I've been looking at layouts in the last while that blow me away. Some of the guys that are just modeling today, there are guys out there that are phenomenal modelers. Yes. So it's still there. But the idea is to understand not everybody can do that. And that's why I try to do some of these tutorials, just to help people know how to use the tools and what to expect.
And I think it's important. Like one of the things we try to constantly talk about, or I want, is the analogy I use is Wayne Gretzky is a hockey player. But I'm a hockey player. But it's just that there's different levels. Like I'm playing the same game he's playing.
That's right.
He's just way better at it than I am. But we're both hockey players.
Right.
And, okay, so not everybody can model to the level that Lex Parker can, but even somebody that struggles with it, they're still model railroaders. Mm-hmm. And it's important that we don't, it's okay not to be great at it.
It is. The hobby is to enjoy.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge. And, you get out of it what you put into it.
Yeah, and I think what you're getting at, Lionel, is I think that's one of the reasons why the modeling with the masters clinics they put on at NMRA national conventions and some of the regional conventions are so popular because you're going in with a master model railroader who, over the course of, say, 6 hours or 8 hours, whatever it takes, will take you step by step through building a structure, a car, or something like that, and you can take it home with you. So you bring your tools. They give you a list of what you need for tools, and you'll get walk through how to build some. So if anybody going to one of the national conventions or even the regional conventions, see if they have a modeling with the masters. They usually an extra fare. They sell out quick, but they are certainly well worth it to get you kind of into the pool, the shallow end on scratch building.
Yeah, I actually did a modeling with the masters with Clark Cooney. I did one on scenery painting in San Francisco a few years ago, and as we were saying, you show them the tools and how to do it. Because most of the guys would sit there thinking, like, where do I start? What do I pick up? And by giving them an example, I'd be painting and just doing one step at a time, and they duplicate the step. And at the end of the day, these guys were so thrilled. Wait till I take this home and show my wife what I did. They were so thrilled that, hey, I can do it. It may not be 100% realistic, but it sure looked a whole lot better than it did as if a 5-year-old had done it. They were the confidence that it gave them. It was a great tool. Those modeling with the masters.
I think you made a very good point there a few minutes ago when you said a lot of times people don't even know what tool to use or where to even start. I mean, really, like Ron Kleiss, our friend Ron Kleiss, he has the mind mount models. These little small tiny laser kits. These are ideal for people to learn to start building model making because they're simple kits. They're 4 walls and a couple of doors or something like that. And once you do that, you can start getting a feel for it.
You get a feel for it, and and if you can't afford some of the kits, you can afford the bare materials, just stripwood and stuff. That's a whole lot cheaper. And if you cut your teeth on a laser kit, you understand the principles and how to build. Switching it from there to just stripwood is easy.
Yeah, see, and that's where I think, unfortunately, there's been a change in the model railroad press, because back in the 50s and 60s, as you know, there were a lot of articles in the magazines that walked you through in 5 or 6 pages, maybe over 2 or 3 issues of scratch building models. They would give you the plans, walk you step by step, cut this piece here, paint this, blah, blah, blah. And at the end, with any bit of luck, you end up with something that looked like it was in the article. But that seems to be lacking these days. And, it's the way things change. People want more instant gratification. There's certainly lots of good kits out there that they can get some satisfaction building. But the true, go down the hobby shop and get a bunch of Mount Albert scale lumber and some Hunter line stains and that type of thing and go out and make your own are not out there. And maybe if our favorite magazine editor is listening, he can out of Montreal. Although we just did run a couple in a recent issue with some good model structure articles. So I think that's what the magazines need, is to get some sort of entry level. Some simple scratch building structures to walk people through and get them on the path.
It would probably be very, very popular. There were some guys that had a podcast. Our buddy David Start knows all about it. He was listening to it. I think the Wileys. I think it was Wiley. But basically what they did is you bought a laser kit, and every week they did, a YouTube video of, okay, this is what we do now, and this is what we do, and walk people through it. Because I think that really is all it is people just are overwhelmed or afraid to do it. And building a structure is a great way to relax.
Well, you just said the key word, overwhelmed. Because you can be overwhelmed by a small kit or a large kit. And one of the things that I explained to people, especially with, say, that stamp mill that I did, or the trestle, the Cimarron Bridge, they're monumental, and there's so much to do. And you look at the kit or the building or the plans, whatever, and you don't know where to start. You don't know what materials to get, and you just close the box up.
Yes.
So what I did is, because I was faced with exactly the same thing, and I thought, well, how do I do this? So I just started with the plans and picked one item, and whether it's machinery or I was building a wall, and in that case, like I did all the interior framing and then planked the outside. Well, all I did was take one component, and that was the project. And I'd work on it for 1 or 2, 3, 4 nights, whatever it was, and I put it aside when it was done. Pretty soon I had 20, 30 pieces all finished. Now all I have to do is put it together.
That's kind of a neat idea, actually. You could build a basic structure wall by wall.
Well, that's what I did with that, 'cause that's a big building.
That's huge.
And
for those who haven't seen it, it is a magnificent model.
Yeah, there must be pictures of it somewhere on your website.
Oh, there's lots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I highly recommend. What is the URL again?
www.drgwrr.com.
Okay.
Denver Rio Grande Western Railroad.
It's a really good website. I just like to repeat stuff because you get on shows and they'll blast by it, and
It's like when somebody gives you a phone number.
Yeah.
Here's my phone number, 708-74-4048.
Yeah, can you slow
What?
down? Yeah.
I haven't even got a pencil yet.
So another topic I wanted to bring up, and I thought maybe if we did it in person, it would be a fun thing to talk about. Is we just did a long series with Tony Custer, and I wanted to talk to him about things. Everybody asks him the same standard questions about railroading, and what I really wanted to talk to him about is what did the hobby mean to him. And I'm like, okay, you're about to pull down a momentous layout that's meant a lot to a lot of people. You've enjoyed the hobby for probably 70 years now. Like, what does it feel like? And it doesn't have to be a happy, what does it feel like to be at this point where you got to take the layout down? Are you gratified that you've had the opportunity to build this great layout? And it's like, okay, now it's time. I got to move on and get a smaller place for my own sake. And is it just like, do you think of all the great memories of building it, or is it overwhelmingly sad?
Well, when I look at the last layout that was here, which was half the size, it was, I would say, like this, about 90% done. And when I decided, we actually took it down because I was planning to move that at that time, so I had to clean this out.
Right.
And then I called the guys down from the group, and they cut it apart and took it away, and it exists in several layouts. And it is emotional. I couldn't be down here. I just went outside. I couldn't watch what they were doing. But I learned a lesson, because it was taken apart with sawzalls. And I'm watching this.
No wonder you couldn't watch it.
So that's how I realized if anything had to come down, even if I was going to keep one section, I would build it so it was substantially removable. So the whole thing is basically on trays of 1x3 trays. So you got a frame and you got joists at 16-inch centers.
Right.
And the risers come off of that for spline roadbed, or the yard is all plywood. And it sits on L girders. So all they do is stack together. They're anywhere from probably 3 feet to 8 feet long.
Right.
So they can be lifted out and walked out through the door.
Have you had any thoughts of selling the layout?
So I because I did mention it was coming down, I am going to be advertising parts. It's monumental to say to somebody, here's a list of everything.
Yeah.
And then everybody wants a list. I'm just going to do it in sections. Here's my locomotives. Anybody want to buy a locomotive? Here's my rolling stock. Another time my trees, might be figures, in groups.
Right.
This is not a fire sale, so if people are looking for real bargains, they're not going to find it here.
They're not going to get them.
Because what I don't sell, I keep.
Sure.
And that'll be used somewhere else. So I've had a lot of interest. People have put the name on a number of things already. But in that process, I got a call from a fellow in California who is involved with a museum down there. And so in the last few weeks, we've been negotiating back and forth that either he or the museum might be interested in taking it.
Wow.
And
the complete layout?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
and it's certainly museum quality.
I've given them till basically January the 31st.
Right.
And if that does go, they would bring a vehicle up here. They would come and help me take it apart, and everything that's up there goes with them. They'll take it back. and they'll reassemble it all.
And you'll be available for them if they have questions, of course, and whatever.
For questions, but I was pretty clear that I'm not involved in putting them back.
No.
I'll give them all the tools. I'll give them their spare materials to to repair joints and track them. That's not a problem.
No.
That way it'll survive.
Yeah. That would be pretty cool.
If that doesn't work, if anybody wants a section, they can take a section. Somebody may want just a yard, but there's not many people starting layouts anymore. That's what I found. Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to talk figures, but would you feel like because somebody would take the thing as a whole and it would live on, that the price for that you'd be like more than willing to make an extremely fair price because it would be much more to you that the thing survived?
Oh, of course. I've started off with the value as it is,
right?
In my opinion, what it's worth, and that's a starting point. Now I know there's going to be negotiation, but you can't go up; you got to go down. And they're interested. I'm anticipating some negotiation, and that's fine. The pleasure is knowing that it's going to survive.
Well, exactly. I guess my question is, sure, you don't want to give the thing away, but if you knew it was going to be, your thought processes about the price is a lot more negotiable. Because it would be so cool to have it survive.
But I'm not going to, even for them, I'm not going to give it away. So, but to answer your question about how I feel about it, I learned from the first layout. This is still going to be very emotional for me, taking this apart. And but I've learned from that experience how to handle it. So if it's going to go to a home, I can be involved, which is fine.
Yeah.
And
So here's my age-old question. I think this has become my quest of this podcast. Is like this hobby has provided you with endless. I mean, the three of us. It's provided the three of us with endless amounts of enjoyment. But what somebody like you, who's an exquisite modeler, who is very accomplished, like, what is it about this hobby? What is it about model railroading that has kept you so attached to the hobby? Like, I don't think your enthusiasm ever really wavered to any great degree.
The hobby for me has been enjoyable. It puts me in another world. I'm not a operator, as I mentioned, but I enjoy building. And when I put something together like this, that's my enjoyment. When I see it, I've accomplished what I try to do. And sometimes I'm not down here for days and weeks. And then I'll come down one day and I'll walk around and I'll think, holy smokes, that's not bad, And I think, why am I doing this? Why am I taking it down? But obviously I have no choice now. But the enjoyment and there's satisfaction in creating. But it's funny you mention that, because the other thing that's crossed my mind a few days ago, I said to myself, why do people build miniatures?
Yes,
why are you building a miniature, whether it's a dollhouse or a railroad or a race car?
It's a pressing question, because I think that's the
why do we build miniatures?
I know.
Well, I can't have the railroad, so. But you create a world.
Yes.
That is completely divorced from your own life. It's another time. And the other thing that it does, which I should mention too, the hobby has also involved my wife, because by doing this layout in the time period, which we didn't mention, is October the 17th, 1937, at 4 p.m.
Right.
So, why? Well, October 17th is easy to remember because it's my birthday. If I picked any other date, I'd never remember it. And October also because it's the fall, so that in the higher elevations the aspens are all turning, so that you get a lot of color in the mountains and the forest, and the pines stand out from it. So it's very colorful. 1937 because I like the current Herald. I don't like the Flying Rio Grande Herald. And it's post-Depression, so I'm not one to build derelicts, things that are falling. And there are some wonderful modelers models built that are in, they suit the location of the time, whether it's an old fishing village or whatever it might be, a mine. I don't want to go to that extreme. To me, I still say, all right, this is post-depression. It's a business. They still have to maintain everything. Things can start to get run down and worn a little bit, but I don't want to model something that looks like it should get torn down.
Right.
That in itself is a nice model, but as a time period, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I'm also trying to reflect the Cumbers and Toltec Railroad as it existed then and today, and that wouldn't be appropriate because I'm trying to do this as something that actually exists today.
Yeah. It seems like it's just brought you this endless stream of, I know satisfaction,
pleasure, joy. Lex mentioned about your own little world, and I remember years ago, this would be in the early 90s, talking to somebody from the Model Railroad Industry Association about things, and he said the big attraction, as far as he knows, is what you alluded to, Lex, is that you can come home, no matter what a crappy day or what's going on in the world, you can go into the layout room or your workbench or whatever, work on something, and you're in your own world you have control of for how many hours you want to sit there, and you can forget about everything that's going on. And to me, that's a big attraction to any type of modeling, whether they're building armor, aircraft, trains, planes, automobiles, whatever. You have the ability to just shut everything out and relax, tune off, and get some enjoyment out of it.
Just to add what I started saying, and I just remembered it, that involves my wife, because one of the things that when you do this kind of a hobby, and I'm doing this of a particular place, then I can research history. I bring history into it.
Right.
And a lot of research. And my wife enjoys history, so when we go out on conventions or trips, and I do some railroading, she enjoys it because it's also historical, and she'll do research on it.
Okay.
She's not a modeler, but she gets the historic part of it as an enjoyment, and she'll come down. She'll ask me questions as well. I want to do. I'll make suggestions. Of what she's found, and that's another extension of the hobby. Yeah. It's not just building something, but the research. So structures are rolling stock. For example, my rolling stock. While they are kits of boxcars, stock cars, whatever, I go and I find one that exists, and I will build it with that number. So every one of these is a number of car that I found, and that I've used that photograph as an example. So it's not just fictitious. So it becomes something that relates to something that exists.
I want to talk to you now about. First, can we just touch briefly? I mean, I don't know how personal you want to get, but we've been friends for a while, and we've also, fought cancer together, off and on. So what's happening with that right now? If you want to tell us, and if not, don't tell us. But I'm interested.
No, and other people might be too. A few years ago, about 7 years ago, I went in to be checked out for prostate cancer.
Do you remember specifically when that was?
7 years ago.
Like in 2014?
Yeah.
Late 2014?
14. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Were you doing it just because I got cancer and you thought, well, if Lionel can do it, I can do it?
I always follow you.
Yeah. I wish you'd called me first. I said, maybe not necessarily this particular thing.
Anyway, so I had CAT scans and got called in, and then my doctor said, "Well, you're here to talk about your prostate, but that's not what we're going to do." And I thought, what? He says, "I want to show you something." So of course he pulls up his screen and all the sections, how they do through your body, and he's going through, and he stops, and he says, "I want you to see this." And I looked at it, and there's a big dark hole, black spot in the middle. I said, "Well, that's interesting. I've never really seen my asshole from that angle before." Well, he just broke up. But anyway, he said, "Your prostate, you've got cancer, but it's very slow growing. It'd probably never kill you. It never kills most people. But most of men in your age get it." But he said, "What I want you to look at is this, that you actually have bladder cancer." And I thought, oh, great. So I started on BCG treatments for close to 2 years. It never did anything. I constantly had tumors. I kept going in for surgery. They'd remove the tumor. It would come back, more BCG. Finally, he said...
What's BCG?
Oh, it's
some sort of a thing.
Yeah, it's a long name.
Yeah, okay.
I couldn't even remember it.
BCG, yeah.
People know what it is.
Yeah.
he said, well, we don't really have much alternative. You're going to have to take your bladder out. We'll have to take your bladder out. I said, look, I don't want my bladder out. I said, it's got to be an alternative. So he came back sometime later and he said, well, there is a trial, clinical trial going on in Toronto at Sick Children, not at Princess Margaret's. And
I've been there.
Yeah, we've met.
Yeah.
And you didn't buy lunch, by the way.
I didn't.
No, you didn't.
No, you did. Well, did you notice how I kind of just stared you down?
I noticed.
Yeah.
So anyway, he said one of his colleagues from university is in charge of the program, and we'll see what we can do. He said, well, there are 3 actually running, and that you have to qualify differently for each one. So I applied, and I was accepted into the one. And of course, there was another growth, so they took it out. So they had a clean base to start from, and I went in twice a week for 6-7 months into Toronto. First day to do all the blood work, and then back again the second day to get infusion. Yeah. The drug that was on trial is Pembrolizumab. Most people just call it Pembro, but it's Pembrolizumab, and it was actually for another disease, and it was a trial. At the end of the trial, they do another cystoscopy to see if there's any growth, and of course I had another tumor, which just dumped me out of the program.
Right.
And so my doctor said, well, Lex, we don't have any choice, so we have to take your bladder out. And he scheduled it for something like, I don't know, in November. And about 2 or 3 weeks before it was scheduled, he said, look, I'm just going to have one more look, So he went for another cystoscopy, and when I went to meet with him afterwards at his office for the results, he was bypassing previous patients he was looking at just with the enthusiasm to come into his office and say, you won't believe this, there's no sign of cancer.
I know.
He was so thrilled. So I go for cystoscopies every 3 months, and almost 3 years now, the bladder's been clear. But now the prostate has accelerated.
Okay.
And so now I'm on treatments, and I'll be getting radiation. They thought it was into the bone, but I had a CAT scan, but there's nothing in the bone, so it's still localized.
I think that might be something I've done better than you. How many CAT scans do you think you've had?
CAT scans?
Yeah.
Maybe 12.
Yeah, my last one was 27.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stella. Me and Stella were tight. And the lady that runs the CAT. And you've got, Bruce, so all 3 of us.
I had prostate cancer and had my treatments finished up in 2012. And
outstanding.
The last check I had it was late 2021, and my PSA level was virtually non-detectable. And come next year, it'll be the last time I see my urologist, because he said after 10 years, you're good to go. And
wow.
that's it. But I had what they call a high dose rate brachy treatment, where they did an ultrasound scan of the prostate and figured out where they wanted to inject an array of needles of radiation. Did that down at Sunnybrook, and then I had 15 external beams up in Barrie, and they nuked it and killed it. So pushing out 10 years free. So
yeah, I'm going to Juravinsky Cancer Center here in Hamilton
Okay.
for all of these treatments, and they've got me on a drug now, and then I'll have a needle of some other kind of drug every 3 months for 3 years, and I'll start radiation probably mid-March.
Do you ever remember a time when coming back from one of your, because I remember you were taking the GO train in, and you're taking the commuter train into Toronto, and I mean, it is tiring. Do you ever remember a time when you came back and you were sitting down here at your workbench, and you were just like, it was just the one thing, it was just the thing for you, just being able to go back to the model railroading? I think this hobby is just way better than anybody realizes.
Yeah, there were lots of times, I just, come out and be out of a different world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so now I want to talk to you about the Titanic. What's happening with that? Because we got a guy, we just interviewed a guy, his name's Paul Cassar. He lives in Australia, and he's a big shot with the railroad down there. I just, halfway through the interview, I just finally flat out asked him, I said, are you some sort of big shot? Because he's the director of this and of that. And somehow in Australia, in New South Wales, they are installing the same system, signal system, or it's not a signal system, the same system they use to control the trains in Europe. where it's basically there is no signals. It's all done within in the locomotive cab or something. It's very complicated, and he explained it to me. But of course, so then I saw a picture of him on Facebook, and he had built that model, that Titanic model that you're trying to build. But of course, you were involved with these guys again down here in downtown Niagara Falls. Mm-hmm. Anybody that doesn't understand Niagara Falls, on the Canadian side, it's like...
It's a different world. You got wax museums and sideshows and all sorts of strange things.
What would it be like? About a half mile?
Quarter mile, half mile? It's not much.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's just everything.
Everything you could want.
By half mile, yeah.
Walk up the hill one side, back down the other side, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
But just a quick correction. Paul's model was the Lego model of the Titanic, which just came out.
There's a Lego model?
Yeah, it was a Lego model that Paul built, which is outstanding. And then Lex has a slightly different version.
Yeah, what scale is yours?
1 to 200. Yeah,
now, just remind us about this story about these guys that want to create a Titanic. Is that still going where they want to?
Yeah, I have a client who's done several museums, attractions over the years, around the world, actually. I'm still involved with him, and they're negotiating, well, it's been a long time negotiating now, for a piece of property up there. And so I designed the building, which has basically a large rectangular 2-story building, really like 4 stories because they're double floors. And I put the bow of the Titanic coming out of the end of it. And
that would be spectacular if they actually built that.
Yeah, they're still negotiating. Unfortunately, the guy that owns the property is Russian, and he's never here, and he doesn't speak English. There's been a lot of back and forth.
Yeah.
But they've got some other interested locations they're working on, so we're still fairly involved with the Titanic Museum.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
So it's still a viable thing that may happen.
Yep.
And you've designed the building.
We've designed the building and all the interiors, yeah.
Wow.
And it's quite an involved process going. You're going in, you're walking through the ship all the way around from beginning to end.
That would be pretty cool. That would be wildly
It is pretty
popular.
Cool, yeah. But the reason I got into it was because 2 years ago I was kind of burned out with this layout. I just needed something different.
Right.
So my wife bought me a model of the kit. It's a trumpeter kit. Trumpeter makes a lot of ship models. Right. This one is of the Titanic. It's a 1 to 200 scale. That's about 5 feet long to give you size-wise. And just like the hobby, this railroad hobby, it's a plastic kit. Yeah, I can put a plastic kit together. But I like realism. And, of course, the walls of the plastic kit are probably 3/16 thick. The walls of the ship are like 1-inch steel. So it would look pretty clunky. Yeah. And like this hobby, there's little home businesses start up.
Home cottage businesses.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you. And so all of a sudden, stuff's springing up all over for replacement parts for the kit to make it more realistic. For example, the funnels don't have the right number of rivets on the funnel, and they just hollow, whereas the Titanic had all kinds of structure inside the funnel and all the correct riveting. So somebody comes up and they're producing 3D printed funnels as to replace it. Well, I saw this. I got to have this. So I've now got a replacement set of funnels that are going to be true to amazing detail and quality. And
where did you see them?
Well, I belong to a group on the internet called Titanic Tips and Tricks.
Titanic Tips and Tricks. Well, here's a tip.
And there's a couple of thousand.
Don't run into icebergs.
Yeah, there's a couple of thousand people on it around the world who are building, and it's only for this model.
Sure.
That group. And so that's where people advertise and promote and tutorials and all kinds of stuff. And anyway, I called the guy up when I got them, and I said, "These are fantastic." I said, "How long does?" And the material they use in the system, you don't see all the lines that the cheap 3D printers have. There's no flash. There's nothing. It is just absolutely perfect. You don't have to do anything with it. He says, "Well, one set of tunnels takes me 20 hours to print."
One set of funnels?
Yeah, 4 tunnels, 20 hours, and each one is different. And anyway, so then another guy suddenly goes up and promotes. He's replacing all the hull walls from the main deck up, all in etched brass, and it just blows you away when you see this. Another guy. I mean, there has to be 1,500 portholes on the hull. You got to hand drill all them out, and there's 5 sizes. So I'm drilling them all out. Now I'm thinking of all kinds of ways. How do I put windows in these things? Well, suddenly a guy pops up and he says, "Well, I've got my 3D printed porthole windows all done. They're all 3D printed out of clear plastic, and they're a little flange on the back. The diameters are right on. You just cut them off and you pop them in from the inside." They're even doing the interiors now. Guys that got the furniture they're printing. They've got all prints for all the walls, the decor inside. And I'm thinking to myself, you got to look through a little window to see this. I am not going that far.
Yeah,
you know,
I've gone partway down the rabbit hole. I'm not going any further.
Have a pull apart, but this ship will be all internally lit as well. I'm actually going to do it with LEDs and so all lit up. But anyway, the other thing that the one fellow did, because the decks are all printed with wood plank and everything, and you have to paint it. And so another guy said, "Well, I'm not gonna. You don't have to paint it." So he's got thin veneer real wood, all etched with all the planking, the grain, everything, and you just glue it on and replace everything, and it's the real wood. Anyway, that goes on and on like that, and so these things are cropping up constantly with these cottage industries. And, so I'm kind of glad I didn't go too far because since we were going to move, I got the forecast on the poop deck all done.
Right.
And now it's boxed, ready to move. Because I figure if I start it again, I'm going to get stuff all over the place again.
Yeah. Are you a messy modeler or are you a neat guy? Are you surgical?
I'm neat.
Yeah.
This what you see here, this is where I model. This is
right.
Most things are done on here, and I just lay things out in an organized form of what I need. I only bring out tools of paint as I need them, and then they do accumulate. And then what I'll do is one day I'll put everything away, and I'll bring things out again as I need it. I'm not messy.
Right. That's just kind of a surgical approach.
Well, yeah, it's for me. That's how it works.
Sure, it's your nature.
Yeah, other people want to be surrounded by their tools and equipment all the time. That's okay. Some people don't have the luxury of a lot of space to work. I don't want a lot of space because the more space you have, the more you fill it. So I've controlled myself with, and this is one thing I do here that you're sitting at my desk. I have a roll of paper, which is actually bond from the printers who do print drawings that I do.
Right.
And I have a roll of this white bond, and I always tape a clean sheet on the desk, and I work on white all the time.
Right.
I can always find parts. And when it gets messy, I glue or paint on it, I replace it.
Yeah, and then you got a TV just over here. And
I got something in the background.
You watch something going. Well, if you wanted something in the background, I got a great idea. You could listen to our podcast.
I will.
I think this is a great last topic to talk to you about. I think Bruce, see if this is a good question.
Okay.
And help me out here.
I'll do as I can.
He'll need help, Bruce.
Yeah, I've known him long enough to know this is true.
I have a lot of respect for you. A lot of respect. I respect your modeling. I respect, what you've done in your life. I just have a lot of respect. You're somebody that I have a great deal of respect for. But something I think that is one of the coolest things about this hobby is that you can have a guy that's a brain surgeon and a world-renowned brain surgeon in Boston, and a guy that's not that everybody's, and a guy that's say a UPS driver in Texas. And if these two guys find a common interest in model railroading, say, a Missouri Pacific Jeep 34, Jeep, 30 that they both like, and they find each other, they will create lifelong friendships with completely different backgrounds. And I was wondering, as you look back now over all your long time have you noticed that? Have you noticed that the model railroading just breaks down barriers and you have friends that you never would have had you not?
No, it's true. It's true. You start off with the local guys because you find each other eventually, and that's how the group that I started in '78 started. Three of us found each other through other friends that were common, and we started, a group of moderators in the local area, Toronto to Niagara Falls area, and that's continued ever since 1978. And people have come and gone, but there's a core group there, 18 to 20 people, and it's continued. We've always hosted them and their wives for many, many years. We had a barbecue every year. We'd host all of them.
Right.
So you start out with the core group, but then as you get on the internet, all of a sudden you start expanding that group of friendship. Some you meet at conventions and face to face, but that's a whole group that I have who communicate with me via email, via Facebook, or whatever it is.
Sure.
So it does expand, worldwide.
And it's just there really is no barriers.
There's no barriers, no.
No, I mean, people from all walks of life will find each other. And because of the love of the hobby or a specific, it's always the love of the hobby. People create these great friendships, and that they're lifelong. Like I say, people are totally, somebody's gone to school for years and years and years for their particular profession, and somebody else has gone a different route in life. But if these guys find each other, they will become lifelong friends.
They can do. Yeah. There are cases where that doesn't, for many reasons, including moving away. But
for sure,
there's it's a great tool.
Yeah,
to create those friendships.
I wonder if that's one of the things about the hobby. Maybe that we don't realize when we're always trying to look for the secret of what makes model railroading so popular or ongoing or something like that. Maybe it's that, because I don't know. I was listening to myself the other day on a podcast.
Was it loud?
No, I was annoying.
How did you sound?
Yeah. I'm okay until I start laughing. I can't stand listening to myself laugh. But anyways, I forget who we were talking to, and we brought up the subject, kind of the same subject about how people stay in this hobby for years and decades. And I was saying, with RC cars, like I'd like to have an RC car, and you'd run it up and down the driveway a half a dozen or a dozen times, and kind of go, okay, that was cool. Now what?
Yeah, now what?
I was looking at using the example in Costco. There's like this $600 drone that I've walked by about a dozen times, and a couple of times I've almost bought it because I thought, well, that'd be cool to have a drone and fly it over my house and see it. But that's another hobby where you'd do it for a while, and you'd kind of put it down because.
Actually, to contradict you, and I like contradict. I don't get very many opportunities to contradict you.
Go for it then.
But here's one. My son was in RC cars.
Okay.
And starts out that way, and but then he got involved with other guys all around the Toronto, Niagara area, and then they get together at meets. There are tracks. They go racing on tracks, or they go out and do cross country, trails with the RC cars. So it just like a model railroad, it does expand to other groups and other areas, and it's not just up and down the driveway. Now what? So the opportunities are there, and there are these groups all over. I think for everything, even stamp collecting. You think stamp collecting? Well, there are stamp groups all over the place where people get together and buy and sell, and So
and there's another hobby, like many hobbies, where it crosses all classes.
It does.
You got the kid who's saving up his allowance money to buy whatever stamp he's interested, or you got the guy out there who's got a few coin and buying some, 3-penny black or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, you hear about, people doing video games, and they get in these, video games where they can, and there's forever, like I do online racing, iRacing, and it's lots of fun, but there's always some crackpot that starts mouthing off to everybody, and you just don't have that, in these kinds of hobbies. And by the way, if you're going to be on the podcast, don't contradict me, just play along.
Okay, I officially apologize, but I am looking forward to the next one.
I think, is there anything else we didn't? I thought this was a great talk. I just wanted to talk to you in your house, as you're getting ready for this momentous part of your life where you're taking down the layout. Such a beautiful layout. I mean, I can't remember how many times I've been here now, but it's one of those things where I feel like I've been blessed that it was close enough that I could come several times.
Well, the other thing And you can come anytime, even when it's not here. But
even when the new people move in.
Yeah, well, that'll be a surprise.
Hello.
But one of the things we could have talked about, I should have mentioned when building this layout. The layout is actually done in layers. And we probably talked about that before, because you have to put up the base. Just putting track down is one thing. Then you put the scenery down. And then you put the trees on. Then you put the structures on. And you think it's finished. But then all of a sudden somebody comes out with grass and other kinds of scenery.
Right.
Then I'll go back and do that. So I'm always going back and adding layers and in completing scenes. And I put figures on, but I try to put figures so that there's a storyline going on in the little group of figures. And so it's always being layered. And then when people come back for the second and third and fourth time, wow, I didn't see that before. And then they suddenly see other things, and they look deeper into the layout. And I always find that rewarding,
Yeah.
that I've put something very minor, very small into it somewhere, and somebody has finally found it.
Yeah.
Because they've got the interest, and they're doing the search in the layout.
Yeah.
This, for example, this scene behind you with the snow scene, fortunately it was an isolated scene for the rest of the layout, and it was all finished. And my wife saw a photograph of a snow scene from a model layout in Europe somewhere, and she said, "Why don't you do a snow scene?" So
Must have heard you talking about her.
Yes, she did. And so she said,
Bye, Susan.
So
we're doing a podcast right now. We're doing an interview. This is the first time we've ever done it with 3 people. I have this little portable machine. What do you hear how this thing sounds? Or you'll be absolutely blown away.
Yeah, she will. So I thought that was a great idea, and this was an ideal spot because it was isolated from the rest of the layout visually, because there's no way you could put a snow scene into the fall scene. And so in order to do that, of course, I had to take all the trees out of it. But then I realized, I've got a lot of photographs of that scene before. So I had to mark what tree went in what spot. And then I snow covered all the trees, did all the groundwork. Then I had to find the spot for that tree to go back in, because it had to look like the before and after shots. And so, in a way, that's kind of a layering thing. But the scene is really a layered scene.
Sure.
Even painting I had to repaint the mural on the back wall and put snow on those trees.
I remember you telling me you taught yourself how to paint, didn't you? You taught yourself how to paint trees and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's simple. I got a tutorial on my website for it.
Of course you do.
Yeah. Everything you see, all these murals are painted with a 1-inch basting brush out of the kitchen drawer, a sea sponge, which is coarse, one of my wife's makeup sponges,
right,
and a small artist brush for just doing the pines.
You know what it is? You know what it is about you? I just realized this, and I've heard some great athletes. I used to know a guy in racing, and he would help anybody. He was a really good racer. He raced on a lot of half-mile tracks and oval asphalt racing all through the Northeast. Real good guy. But he always was helping everybody with their cars, and he won a lot. And finally, somebody asked him one day, he says, "Why are you helping everybody?" He says, "Because I want to beat the best." And he says, "If I can make you go faster, then I got to be better." And that's the one thing I think people.
Well, that is a drive in this hobby.
Yeah, like you want people to be as good at it as you are, or better. You prefer if you showed somebody a technique and they ended up developing it, and they became better at a technique than you are, you'd be thrilled that that was because you helped them.
It is true, and what that does is drive you to reach another level. And I get ideas and inspiration from a lot of places and pictures and people that I've seen in modeling. I don't duplicate what they've done, but I'll pick up a little trick or a little way something they finished it, or a look or a detail. And so I learn from other people. This is not just entirely me.
No,
this is an assembly of ideas that I've picked up. John Allen as example. That's where I kind of started all this kind of scenery and weathering. Seeing John Allen's pictures of all these locomotives and the weathering, and even his scenery. While some of it's not realistic, but the weathering part is realistic.
Sure.
That's how nature is.
Yeah, but that's important. That's an important point to make, is that you want people to be as good at it or better at it than you, and you'll do whatever you can to help them along the way, which is a great part of this.
I do try to, inspire other people, and be quite frank with you, I never realized that was happening. I honestly didn't. It wasn't something I was attempting to do specifically. It was more, I'll do this and then I'll just share it. And hopefully somebody will be inspired by it. And apparently there are people that are being inspired by it. And it's not that they're going to do what I do, but like we talked at the beginning, they find out the tools and how to approach something.
Yeah.
That in itself is valuable.
Speaking of tools and things like that, over your length of time in the hobby, and we've got quite a bit of experience sitting right here amongst the three of us, what do you think is the biggest change in technology for the better for the hobby?
In technology? Well, sound. This is all tsunami sounds in my locomotives, and it's all NC, so it's all wireless, and just hand control. That's no cords. I think that and the sound is what's elevated this the hobby of model railroading to another level. So it's not just a silent train running around in a circle.
Now, do I remember correct? Your first load, you had the PFM sound system in it.
I started off with PFM, yeah.
Pacific Fast Mail.
Yeah, Pacific Fast Mail. I had the large unit. I had two of them, actually. That's why this whole ad was done in two blocks, a block system, so that I had cab A, cab B.
Right.
And I could only run two trains. I left all the blocks here because it was a way of, if I had a short or derailment or anything happened, I could isolate where it was, because I could just turn blocks on and off to find out where the short was. And anyway, so I think sound would be the next thing. I would say below sound is 3D printing.
Yeah,
it's added to the realism of small things, particularly figures. I'm not thinking so much of there are some 3D buildings that are being done, but that's something you can build yourself. But you can make a figure, but you do a 3D printed figure, and it's absolutely amazing, the realism in it.
Yeah, because there are companies there. I know there's Bernard is working on it, scanning people, aka Little Lionels, but there's other companies. Little Modeloo in the in the UK, they sponsor days out at a place like Severn Valley Railway, where they encourage people to come out and they'll dress them in period costumes. Like a shunter engineman or fireman,
really,
with shovel and everything, and 3D scan them, and then they're on their website now.
Yeah,
people in period costumes, women with baskets, kids, and things like, and that just kicks. It's a whole other thing. Just kicks up the realism. Yeah.
Do you know of mini prints? Bernard Halen?
No.
Helen? I always say Halen, and it's Helen. It's Hellen. There's no A in it.
No.
The 3D figures that I got were some of the first ones that came out there from Australia, from Andean models.
Oh, he has nice figures.
Yeah, that's what my 3D figures. Yeah. Now they are expensive.
No, I think he 3D scans as well, doesn't he? Some of his people.
Oh yeah.
So Bernard Helen is a fellow that, after when COVID started, he was his main job was helping local businesses with PR and their websites and things like that. And his business, once they closed all the businesses stopped needing him, so he 3D printed a beaver for his layout, and some people saw it and they wanted to have copies of this beaver, so then he started selling it. He now has, so this has started in April of 2020, and he's now up to a point where he gets like 200 orders a month. Wow. He's finding a place to rent to run his business out of it.
Yeah.
And it's just this, and he's just over here in Toronto. And near High Park, and it's just another one of these fantastic things. So he was doing 3D scans, and he scanned me and made a little me in a disgruntled pose, and he made a little Lionels, and he sold them, and he raised over $2,000 for my One More Year.
Oh, now it's outstanding
foundation.
Wow.
Which reminds me, I want to personally thank Jim Scores too on the podcast, because we had made it to $98,400 or something like that, or $98,700. Anyways, he heard that and he wrote a check he donated the balance so that we made it to exactly $100,000 after this year.
Well done, Jim. Excellent. Yeah. Thank you.
NCE, Jim Scores, NCE.
Pleasure.
Actually, you know what I want to do is after you get into the new place and you start building that shelf layout, I think we should come back and do this again and just kind of, because by then you'll have taken the layout down, you'll have a lot of stories about what happened to it and parts and pieces, so that'll be interesting for people.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm very, like I say, it's really cool that to have had the opportunity to, I'm so glad you lived in my neighborhood. My neck of the woods.
Indeed.
I mean, I know there's a lot of great model railroads out there. There's a lot. There's way more than we realize. There's tons. And
a lot of guys don't belong to groups either. So
I know.
That's true.
It's one of the fascinating parts of this hobby is that people will spend their entire life building something, or like you did, 25 years building this layout, and never for a minute thought of stopping because of the amount of pleasure it brought to you.
Yeah, it's true.
It's a fascinating hobby that way. There's it's something to do with building miniatures.
Yeah.
People love miniatures. Well, Bruce, can you give out our email address?
Yes, please contact us. Let us know, as always, what you think, good, bad, otherwise. Our email address is modeler'slife. That's modelers with one L like Lex, not modelers with two L like Lionel.
Oh, there you go. Oh, nice. You know what? That's the first time I've ever seen you do it live.
This is true.
I've heard you do it live. I've never seen you do it live.
True, because usually have the cameras off.
Usually we have the cameras off. We can't stand it. This has gone very well.
It has.
I should have hit
I kept looking away from you because I can't look at him. He's not supposed to be there.
And what are you going to do with the Corvette?
Drive it.
Because if you remember, my offer still stands. If you need somebody to take it for a spin, when you're busy, I'm your man. Okay.
He was surmising on the way in here that it might be an adventure to take it out today, but I said, I don't think Lex will let you do that.
Well, I just have a remote start, so every once in a while I just start it up, let it run, turn the fluids over, and shut it off.
What do you think of the mid-engine one? I do not like the mid-engine one.
I like it, but it doesn't look like a Corvette.
No. I don't understand what was wrong with a Corvette, the way a Corvette was.
I mean, I guess it's another generation. Things change, and there are a lot of things I like on it. But I like my C7. The downside of the C8 is the factory price is reasonable, but everybody who is selling them or wants to resell what they bought are ripping people off.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you buy a car for $85,000, and they turn around and they sell them for $120,000, $130,000.
Are they hard to get a hold of?
They're very hard to get hold of. Even there's a high demand for my car. I'm getting requests. I'd say I get a request once every month from one of the dealers. They want my car because there's a demand for those cars, and I'm offered close to what I paid for it.
Yeah.
In 14.
Jeez.
It's shocking.
How many kilometers you got on that puppy?
There's 65,000 kilometers.
So that's like
barely driven.
35,000, 37,000 miles. Yeah, nice car.
I look after it, and it's just I have never had any problem with a car to take it in for dealer for anything other than lube and oil.
How big is the garage at the new place?
It's one wide, so I can only get.
Is it wide?
It's a wide.
Okay.
So it's a 1.5. So I can't put two cars in unless they're midgets.
I know that's like my house in Florida. They claim it's a 2-car garage. I don't know what 2 cars they're putting in it, but they're not real cars.
Little tiny Shriner cars.
Yeah, little Shriner cars. But they swore up and down, it's a 2-car garage. No, it's not. You can barely. I can barely get my car in it. Never mind.
Well, it'd be nice to have the space around a car in the garage, get to work on it, and then you can do it any day. But it'll be in the garage, and in the wintertime, it'll be stored somewhere else.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just let me know where that is.
Do you have a storage place available?
I could soon find storage for you.
Noted.
That won't be a problem.
Yeah, that won't be a problem.
I'm sensing. Yes.
So we have a website, amodelerslife.com. That's amodelerslife.com. And if you didn't catch the email address, if you go on the website and you click on a picture of Bruce the moderately agitated mailboy in a particularly agitated state, boom. All you do is click on that picture, an email automatically pops up on your screen, and you just fill in the text, and we love getting email.
We do.
It is our favorite thing of all.
It is.
Tons and tons of email now.
Yes.
We're starting to fall behind, which is good.
There's a surprise.
Oh, yeah, and if you ever want a T-shirt, you don't look like a T-shirt kind of guy to me.
Sleeveless?
Wow, we could probably find one of those.
My wife would have a fit.
Yeah. You look more like a golf shirt kind of guy to me.
Sort of. I wear T-shirts.
Oh, okay. All right.
Especially in the summertime out in the car. And
Well,
outside.
Lionel will tell you something important right now.
I will. Exactly. If you want a T-shirt, and I forget to bring you one, if you go to Midwest Model Railroad, which is in Independence, Missouri, this is a guy who Stephen Atwell started this shop with his dad in their basement 10 years ago, 11 years ago, or now, I guess. And they had like 300 square feet. They now have a 15,000 square foot store in Independence, Missouri, which is just like across the river from Kansas City. And it just grows and grows and grows. And he's an electrician on Broadway, and he wants to keep his electrician's job on Broadway. And I keep thinking, I don't see that. But he insists he's going to be able to keep the store, so that'll be an ongoing saga. But anyways, they are the official supplier of AML merchandise. So if you go to MidwestModelRR.com and you go across the navigation bar and click on AML, boom, you are in a wonderland of AML merchandise. Hats, hoodies, mugs, T-shirts, anything you could possibly want.
I'll check it out for sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
I'll buy one of everything.
Yeah. That's where your shirts come from?
That's where some of them come from. And then we have Patreon. Our Patreon, this is on the free channel because we want everybody to hear this. And if you want to hear twice as much, this will be on a Monday. But if you want to hear twice as much podcasting, every Tuesday we have a on Patreon, which costs you for just 365 payments of 16 cents a day. You can have twice as much podcasting each week. And so on our Patreon channel, we the $10 patron members, they get a special T-shirt. So we have a few that are made locally, but most of our ones that you can purchase. We had to find a place where people could purchase T-shirts because relying on me was a bad idea.
Yes, outsourcing was key in this case.
Yeah, outsourcing was key. The problem with me is, until I started the podcast, I've had been in self-employed, like you, pretty much my entire adult life. And my secretary's been with me for 32 years. So anything I really ever wanted to get done, I'd go, Barb, and she would do it. Well, then when it came to this podcast and sending out T-shirts, then it became my responsibility, and that's just, mailing out stuff really is.
Do what you do best.
Yeah, exactly. It's talking. So anyways, that's it. So I think we've managed to cover everything. Now we've talked for an hour and 50 minutes. This is spectacular.
Well, I'd like to thank you both for this opportunity. It's been enjoyable.
It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks for having us down. We appreciate that, Lex.
It's such a great thing. And it's the first time, Lex, this is the first time we've ever done an interview. We're using our little portable thing with three of us. Look at the technology now. Wait till you hear this. You will not be able to, you'll be blown away by the quality.
I'll look forward to it, yeah.
It's just, it's amazing the quality that comes out of that thing. And it's only like $600-700. And of course I bought a couple extra pieces. All right. So are you ready? Do you know what to do at the end? Yeah, you probably don't remember. At the appropriate moment, you have to say, "Happy Rails to you." Now, there's no singing, there's no dancing, there's no interpretation.
Well, that's what I was hoping for.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
exactly.
you can do that after we're off the air.
Yeah, that's why I pointed that out to you.
Well, happy rails to you.
Well, not yet.
No. He did have the line right, though.
That was my practice line.
Okay, yeah, that wasn't the appropriate moment. You'll know when the appropriate moment comes. Are you ready? All right. So, well, Lex, I don't have it in front of me. Well, Lex, as we close the barn doors and the sun slowly sets over the back 40, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say,
happy rails to you.
Kyle and Busted Knuckle, guests of a Modeler's Life podcast, stay at the Casa del Sol Motor Court and Inn, where late night dancing at the Rumba Room is a magical event to be experienced.
It's another Lincoln Homer.